When you're not on Reddit, do you feel so compelled to be heard that you scream meaninglessly into the void? Do you talk to the television when no one else is home? Do you read books out loud? Story 1. Rule 1 of Reddit is that most of the advice is from people who do not have any knowledge about what they are talking about. At least they are being honest about their lack of knowledge. Story 2. I think the honest answer is that many men, and perhaps especially those on Reddit, do suffer from a lack of relationships and do not have people to talk to about it. Reddit is a bit of a release valve for those feelings, and so it pops up every so often, as it just feels good to have a place where you can say it. Story 3. I've done this in the past. For me, at least, it was a case of wallowing in loneliness and self-pity and irrationally hoping someone would help me out. Don't worry, I'm in a much better state than I was back then. I was doing that sort of thing when I was younger and more depressed, but I wouldn't be surprised if others did it for similar reasons. Story 4. Worse are answers to questions under products on Amazon. Sorry, I cannot tell you. I did not buy the product. I bought the product in pink. Ask someone else. Story 5. That's like asking why do we draw symbols everywhere? It's an expression of frustration and acknowledgement by people who know what it feels like. It's self-flagellation and self-affirmation rolled into one. I won't call it positive, but I hesitate to call it negative either. It's a darker counterpart to the nod. It is the cringe. Story 6. My family is between conservative and moderate. My parents told me no girlfriends until I'm out of school and have a stable job. So, I did that, and when I have a stable job, I'm too used to being alone that I find it weird to start any relationships. Story 7. I respond with a proper answer that I've formed from what I've seen over the years, followed by, but I wouldn't know. I've never been in a relationship. I'm just basically saying don't take my word as gospel. Not crying about it, simply making the statement. That thing's just long, man. Story 8. I have never done this, but I understand the impulse. To me, when I see a post like, what's something cute your girlfriend does? I see an implicit assumption that I have a girlfriend, or at least that it's common enough that whoever wrote the question didn't see a need to target it. It's a bit like seeing, how big is your second house? It feels a little like the person who wrote it isn't aware that they're lucky. Of course, having a girlfriend is that common, and the reaction is irrational. It's a perfectly good way to phrase the question even if you're single. But that's what I see the self-pitying comments as, people saying you ask this of everyone. So I'm going to answer to remind you that it doesn't apply to everyone. Because I'd have felt better if you'd said guys who are in relationships. X. Story 9. Do you talk to the television when no one is home? Sir, I would like you to know that I talk to everything whether people are home or not. The refrigerator, the oven, the toaster, the sink, the trash can, the garbage disposal, the back door, the thermostat. The television is probably the least strange thing I've talked to. Story 10. So what if I do? So what if I freaking do? It's not like there's anyone else to talk to. I'll say whatever the hell I want to the TV, and you can't do anything about it. Story 11. Let me ask something back. Why do people ask yes or no questions when they only want one type of answer? For example, why ask, have you ever been cheated on in a relationship? When you actually want to ask, those that have been cheated on, what's it like? Story 12. In real life, with a group of friends, they will start talking about their relationships sooner or later. Being the only one in the group who cannot add anything, once that starts causes a lot of very negative thoughts like, there must be something wrong with me. There are so few chances to talk about those feelings, so I can totally understand why people need to say that. It's like being sick of everyone talking about relationships as if they just happen easily to everyone. Story 13. It's always better to say that than saying I got really lonely and considered getting myself a pet to fill the void. Even though a dog cannot talk about Harry Potter, it still listens to me when I say I wanted Harry and Hermione to be together. Story 14. Do you feel so compelled to be heard that you scream meaninglessly into the void? Well, yes. Everyone wants to be heard. I feel like yelling into the void is kind of normal to a certain extent. Reddit is an open forum. Everyone is free to give their input, even if it's meaningless. The masses determine what's good and what's bad via upvotes and downvotes. If you think somebody's input is meaningless, just ignore it. Is that so hard? Story 15. I guess because it is a component they feel is often overlooked, even though the number of men with no relationship experience is constantly increasing. Take it as a side note that the number of people surveyed with relationship questions could be lower than one might expect. Story 16. I have complex conversations with myself, usually from opposing points of view or otherwise as an observer, mainly because I have no one to talk to and COVID-19 has killed my best avenue of meeting people. Story 17. When I had never been in a relationship, which was true until I was 32, it was because I was desperately lonely and wanted attention. It's true what they say, though, desperation is not attractive, neither for romantic nor platonic purposes. Story 18. Because they want our feelings validated. People don't want to feel alone, and having someone acknowledge your pain and sympathize with you when you're in pain goes a long way. Story 19. Shy, high standards, overthinker, and tend to push people away when they get close because I enjoy being on my own but also want a relationship. Oh, and also, things were about to go down, but the pandemic came and messed me up, so now I'm not sure. Story 20. I am lonely with nobody to talk to, looking for either a pity conversation or at least maybe get a "why did you respond to this?" I will even take an argument. Anything beats sitting in my room by myself all day with no social interaction again. Story 21. I think the answer is just because I can. I try not to do this myself, but because there is very little barrier to entry and people can easily participate, and probably do not have anything better to do with the next few seconds while they type, they do it. It is the same with anything, really. Go on any fan page or the comments on Facebook for something, and you will see people who are following a page for a show they have not watched in years, just so they can comment on every post telling people they have not watched the show in years. I am looking at you, The Walking Dead. Story 22. Not sure I understand the question, but there is definitely a difference between someone who has never been in a relationship and someone who has. It's like driving a car. You can read about it, study car parts, and experiment with your 3D printer all you want. You can chat with mechanics and car dealerships. But until you spend hours behind the wheel on the road, you just can't understand how other drivers work. You can't realize how many things you have to pay attention to behind the wheel and how to maintain a car so you don't crash, run out of gas, or behave in certain weather conditions until you live those lessons. And you will get it wrong the first 1 or 2 attempts. You just need time to see different car models. Get into the habit of driving safely. Seatbelts are like condoms, but for your drives. Eventually, it becomes second nature, and you just have to hope that one day a drunk driver or brakeless semi doesn't greet you face first at 50 miles per hour, as you one day realize nothing matters and you have no real control over anything in your long-distance road trip. Story 23. I think you are right that some people just need to talk. On the other hand, some people truly don't understand how online interactions work. It took at least 5 years for my grandma to understand that every Facebook post was not a direct message to her. She would very seriously try to answer all of them, and that when someone posts a picture of their cat, you don't reply asking about personal weekend plans. Story 24. I found that I did this a lot when I was younger. It was born from a place of both insecurity and not having anyone to talk to. I was so desperate to tell somebody, anybody, about what I was going through that I would tell everyone. Thankfully, I have developed much healthier ways of dealing with things, but yes, that is why I used to do it. Story 25. Maybe because they're frustrated by not being able to participate in the conversation and want to know that other people do too. You seem so mad about this, and I don't understand why. Story 26. I don't know. I've never responded to relationship questions with "I don't know." I've never been in a relationship. Jokes aside, I think maybe they do just want to reach out and feel like they are participating in the discussion. Story 27. I absolutely use it to scream into the void. In the proper subreddits, though, some Reddit users are stuck in situations where they have no one. I also talk to myself and television a lot. I honestly don't consider that a bad thing, though. Weird, maybe. Laugh out loud. Story 28. Because I have never been in a relationship, I cannot answer your question. That is like asking a deaf person about their current music preferences. Edit. I just realized the original poster meant answering relationship questions on Reddit, not in real life. I am dumb. Story 29. Because it means we have no experience or knowledge to answer the question. Don't think about it that much. Not every statement is looking for attention. Also, you need this one every time there's a question about sex. Story 30. I don't know, I have never been in a relationship. I was raised with a cold emotional connection, a leather belt, and a cold aggressive father. I don't have that void for company. Yes, once a year I start thinking about how it could be, probably like having a best friend under the same roof. It's probably a trauma and a learned pattern of shutting everything off when that overwhelming feeling of connection comes. I feel like a monster when kids die from friends, and I sit for hours hugging them and doing my best to show empathy, or is it sympathy? I know and understand without saying it. P.S. Bon. Saying it makes me think about it and fix things. Story 31. You scream meaninglessly into the void. This is literally all that social media is, was, and ever will be. Complaining about it is as useless as doing it. Story 32. Do you feel so compelled to be heard that you scream meaninglessly into the void? He asked to strangers on the internet regarding a question that had zero impact on his actual day-to-day life. Story 33. Maybe they aren't happy about it and want to talk? It's strange for a forum on the internet designed to let people communicate, I know, but you don't need to be rude. Story 34. They are 15 to 23-year-old individuals, answering all questions about relationships and sex with responses like, never been in a relationship, and wish someone would have sex with me. It is frustrating when someone asks a serious question and seeks answers, only to receive silly, immature replies trying to be funny and self-deprecating. It is the same when you reply on AskReddit, especially when you mention you have had sex, and they pull the classic "I have had sex" subline. Yes, I am married with 2 kids. I have had a lot of sex. It kind of goes with being married, at least for some people. It is mostly kids being foolish. Story 35. This isn't restricted to guys or questions about relationships. Take a look at the questions section of an Amazon page or any similar store. Will this stand mixer be able to knead 5 pounds of dough? I don't know. I have a spoon that mixes pancake batter well. Story 36. These are the people who give the following reviews. I haven't used the item yet, but it arrived a day earlier than promised, and the packaging was really nice too. I haven't unwrapped it yet, but I intend to unwrap it definitely by the 32nd of February. Story 37. I am baffled as to why that type of response seems to annoy so many people so much. Not having had a relationship by a certain age is not the norm. You can talk for days about how everyone goes at their own pace, but when you make it to over 21 and you haven't had a girlfriend, sex, or either, it will begin to weigh on you, simply from a fear of missing out perspective if nothing else. An anonymous platform is a place to vent these frustrations. For all of you who claim to be very successful with women, I think that you'd be in a better position to understand this than the forever alone guys. Sometimes, people complain not to necessarily get a solution, but to release pent-up frustration. Signed, someone who is almost 22 and has had only a single relationship that hardly amounted to anything. It doesn't even occupy my mind 99% of the time. But sometimes, especially when others begin sharing experiences that I cannot, such as sex, one cannot help but feel inadequate. So you vent. Story 38. I mean, if you ask me war questions and I answer, I don't know, I've never been in a war before, and you say to me, why are you answering me this? Why aren't you saying something else? My answer is going to be the same. Story 39. Scream. Thumbs tapping furiously on my cell phone. Talk to the television when no one else is home? What do you mean by, when no one is at home? Do you read books out loud? It helps retention. You should try it. Story 40. Bruh, why do you care? Just let me vent. I sometimes reply to those questions with advice, but I always mention that I've never been in a relationship to frame the advice. It's still good advice because I've seen it happen in other relationships time and time again, and I don't have any bias since I'm not on anyone's side. However, it's not based on first-hand experience. Story 41. Since they can't find anyone who will be with them, they're just desperate for human interaction. They probably have long conversations with checkout clerks and ask everyone they pass by how they are. There might be some mental illness too. Very sad. Story 42. Because someone who has never been in a relationship is aware that they have no business giving advice to someone on that, I don't really see how this is a big deal. Or maybe I'm misinterpreting the question. What other answer should they give? Story 43. While I have very little romantic relationship experience, I find that like 90% of relationship questions asked here can be answered with, talk to your significant other about this issue and find a solution or compromise that works for both of you. If they aren't willing to work with you on it, then leave. Then there is the 10% where they are being so blatantly abused that the only sensible advice is for them to leave as soon as possible. Story 44. Prior to my current relationship, I barely had enough time to accumulate, oh, I've been in a relationship advice because they all turned out to be friendships that ramped up really fast when we realized we had a lot in common, and we didn't see it until one of us had asked the other out. But honestly, as a guy, I'm bewildered in a way when my fiancé comes home from having a night out with coworkers and says, yeah, our new coworker Danielle is a lot of fun. We might go shared interest sometime. It's extremely uncommon, from my experience, for men to follow up with people they may meet somewhere, and we don't get a lot of friendships that start up as quickly as the ones women seem to have. It sounds mildly misogynistic, I realize that, but men are conditioned to be stoic, non-reliant creatures unless they know they need assistance. I wasn't about to risk a garage door repair when I have no idea what I'm doing, and I don't trust YouTube for expensive repairs.